And for anybody who hasn't heard the story, the story that Eric is talking about is I had a vision of Yah-Shua, and I'm purposely using the name Yah-Shua, the risen king, the risen sovereign, show up in my bedroom. Because I was having this conversation with him, and I'm like, I don't understand why some of these things I'm missing some details. And some of these things just aren't making sense. And I don't understand why we're not kicking out demons like you were kicking out demons. Why we're not getting the same kind of results that you're getting. There's something that I'm not understanding in this. And so that was my conversation, like for the majority of the day. And then I went to go lay down, and I finally shut up. Like, this is what's really important. When you want Yahweh to talk to you, you have to close your mouth.
Close your mouth.
you can't continue to speak, right?
There's many occurrences in the New Testament of closing your mouth. Like
yes.
Exodus 14, 13, and 14, and then
shut up and watch and see the deliverance of your Lord.
And don't say anything when you're walking around the wall. And
Yes.
Yah-Shua saying, kicking out the people and saying, don't say a word.
Exactly. Many references to telling us to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is if you're talking, you can't hear him talk.
That's true.
And so, and it's not because he can't get loud enough, it's because you're not listening. That's the problem, is you aren't listening. And so, okay, so here's the point. So I went to go lay down, and I had just laid in my bed, and I was not asleep. I literally just laid down. And then this vision of Yahshua comes into my room, and I could tell he was way bigger than the space that he was in. And it was as if the things around me were disappearing just because he was there. And half his body was through the wall, and his legs were through the floor. The top part of his body was through my ceiling, but yet I could see him. And as soon as he showed up, the light was so bright coming off of him that it consumed my entire room. And I squeezed my eyes shut, because as soon as his presence came into my room, I was terrified. I was so scared, like I wanted to die. I understand the prophets of the Old Testament and John from the book of Revelation saying I was as if dead. Like, I totally understand that statement now, because the purity of the presence of him was so perfect and so overwhelming that I was totally insignificant. There's really not any words to even really describe how insignificant I was in that situation. And his presence in front of me was probably milliseconds, but yet his image was seared on my brain. And I'll never forget the feeling or the image that was seared into my brain when he showed up. And after he left, he showed up, showed himself to me, and then he disappeared, right? And I was still, as soon as his presence lifted, the only thing I could say is, I love you! Right? And I'm shaking, my whole body's shaking, right? And then he could proceed to have a conversation with me. And he said, you wanted to know what you're missing. What you're missing is this, is you don't know me as the conquering king. I'm the one who defeated the devil. I defeated the enemy, all of the enemy, including death itself. And you don't know me as the conquering king. You know me as friend. You know me as lover. You know me as, like, safety, as protection, as your best friend. And he's right. That's how I've known him my entire life, is as a best friend, somebody who would never hurt me.
Yep.
And I didn't know him as the conqueror, as the enemy, as the one and I'll explain what I mean in a second. Right? I didn't know him as the one that those that are our enemies would look at and think of him as an enemy. Right? I didn't know that. I didn't know that Yah-Shua, because I had never seen him that way. And that was what he was showing me, was when I show up into a space where there's demons, this is what they're seeing. This is the presence that they're getting. They're seeing me in all my fullness, with all my light. And you and your little body can't even handle a few seconds of me. And that's the thing that's super powerful, right?
Yeah.
Is the thing that's so unbelievably powerful is this fact that the enemy can see the fullness of him, and yet they still kind of stick around, and they're still fighting, and they're still doing these things. And so, like, that was the conversation in relation to deliverance, is if the enemy is not going, then they're not seeing that Yah-Shua.
Yeah.
They're not seeing that Yah-Shua. What's coming out of you isn't that fullness of that Yah-Shua. And actually, this is a revelation I'm getting right at the moment, is we're bringing something to the table that is a watered down version of Yah-Shua.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't the full Yah-Shua in all of what people want to say, in all of his glory, which would be all of his light, all of his reverence, all of the fullness of who he is. We're not bringing that Yah-Shua to the table because we don't know him. We're not using the name. Whatever the situation is, he's not being presented.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's presented, those demons have no choice but to instantaneously flee. And so when you see those instant miracles, it's because that's the Yah-Shua that showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the name that you actually used in that moment. You brought that presence of him forward. And the demons knew they had no choice. They could not stick around because he's that terrifying to them. His authority is that high, his power is that high, that they can't. They have no way to resist that.